Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. You need to enable sharing for me.
Yes, you are.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir. Visible.
Um, there is somebody who's got a lot of background conversation going on. Can you please go on, everybody, can you please go on mute? Thank you. Okay. So today's session, marketing on a shoestring budget, and I saw some queries on the chat whether we can help generate leads organically. We can help you with multiple things, but I think the biggest thing we have to help you with is how to enable you to become a very successful entrepreneur. And that is our larger focus. So let me start off on the presentation. There are a lot of new participants here who haven't attended our earlier sessions. So we'll quickly go through our philosophy. Why are we doing whatever we are doing? So why do we think Indian entrepreneurs need coaching help? To begin with, I want to briefly share what our views are on the Indian entrepreneurship ecosystem. What is the entrepreneur's nature? What is the kind of ecosystem he has available? BICE was set up in September 2018 specifically to address high failure rate that has beset startups. Even though I have been personally working with startups since 2013, but formally, Sudev, Anupma, and I got together and created an organization called Bulletproof Your Startup in 2018. And our starting up set of premises were that culturally Indian youths are encouraged to seek jobs rather than entrepreneurship. If you go back to your childhood and remember any conversation you heard or got involved in about entrepreneurship, about starting a business, usually people are highly discouraged to do this. Consequently, they're not trained or coached to become an entrepreneur. And they're trained constantly to do something rather than think, plan, and execute. And that is understandable because in Indian history, we've come through very difficult times, and the intention of everybody around you was to create a secure future for you. But what has happened as a consequence is that consequently, our ability to think through things and problem solve is not developed with entrepreneur mindset. It is developed with job mindset. Therefore, we are more realistic about our situation. Where will the monthly expense come from? Where will I get, more and more income? How will I build my career? Very seldom will you find your parents telling you, no, you must be in touch with your emotions and your passion.
Ravi sir, a quick check. Guys, is there a problem with audio still? Ajay, Nagan, do you still have problems with the audio?
Yeah, actually we can hear, but there is a lot of noise, I would say. I mean, not from someone else's mic, but like echo sound or something.
If it's possible, can you use microphone or anything?
Actually, I'm using the laptop microphone, but I'll use a hands-free and see if it improves. Hello. So can you hear me?
Yes, now it's better.
Yes,
Definitely.
much better.
Great. So I'll stay with this. So culturally, we are not taught to be in touch with our emotions, with our passion. So if you in your 12th class wanted to be a photographer, your parents probably told you study for an engineering exam or a medical exam so that you get a really solid career. Consequently, we are not ready to risk all for our dreams. And that becomes a limitation. In comparison to this, if we look at the Western entrepreneurship ecosystem, it's very different. Youth are encouraged to be entrepreneurs right from their childhood if they show inclination and initiative. And they make liberal use of thought frameworks, business models, business tools, coaching, whatever they can lay their hands on, and so that they succeed in business. To give you an example, this is my favorite example. A gentleman called Bill Gross, who's a very, very successful serial entrepreneur, has done multiple startups, is a big time investor in equity market. When he was 12, he went to his father and said he wants to start a candy stand next to the bus stop. His father took out $100 and gave it to him and told him that go ahead and set up the candy stand, but I will take 25% of your profits because I'm lending you money. So in that one action, he did two things. He told his son that it's great to be, it's, I think, very good idea to be an entrepreneur. And guess what? I'm going to show confidence in you by giving you money. But money doesn't come free. So I'm going to take 25% of your share. No child can get a better encouragement to become an entrepreneur. Another thing which I want to share with you is that if any one of you who did not know swimming wanted to learn swimming, you would not jump into deep end of pool and start swimming. You'll probably look for a swimming coach who teaches you how to swim. But the most surprising part is invariably 99.9% jump into business without any training or coaching. And I'm not surprised, I'm phenomenally surprised that nobody even pauses to think that how do I need to get ready for this? And you need to get ready for it because it is not easy to set up business. So moving on. The other thing I see very, very different between Indian culture and Western culture is that Western culture has very high degree of customer centricity and value creation. And this is the first reason why our marketing expenses climb. Because if you really spend time and effort in creating really high quality value for customer, even if your product is half ready, he will take it from you. We'll get into it a little deeper during the workshop. The fourth factor that I see is that there is a highly evolved communication skill and marketing capability in the Western culture. And a very large majority of entrepreneurs who are either have technical background, don't have sales and marketing background, have a lot of challenge in this area. So what is BWISE's problem statement? BWISE's problem statement really is, in order for the Indian startup entrepreneur to be successful, he needs to be coached using a combination of thought and business frameworks to help him strategize and then create, execute, review, and refine his operations plan in a structured manner that covers his complete journey from the time he gets an idea till he creates a growing company. So for this, we have created what we call a 5 Kazims journey business evolution framework that leverages well-established international as well as proprietary business frameworks to help entrepreneurs convert his idea into a successful company. And in our experience, this has 6 stages. This is what we say, this is what we call crossing the 5 chasms, idea to execution. And the 5 chasms really are the last 5 circles: customer development, product go-to-market fit, business model discovery, go-to-market strategy, and growth. How do we do this? We have actually 4 different ways of engaging with entrepreneurs. Workshops, close to 3,000 entrepreneurs have attended our workshops in last 2.5 years. Actually, it's almost 3 years, no, 2 years. And hello. We also do what we call one-on-one coach insight, where we actually help entrepreneurs cross a specific issue that he has, or solve for a specific issue, by engaging with him for a few weeks and helping him figure out analyzing the problem with him, helping him figure out the core of the problem, and then designing solutions to address that problem. We have recently started what we call strategy design, which is a longer exercise where a startup is actually struggling with one of the 5 chasms. And there we actually work with him over a period of 2 to 3 months and help him figure out a strategy for dealing with that chasm and moving on. Strategy design, we are engaged with about 5 startups right now. We started this just last month. Then we also do end-to-end deep coaching, where we actually get involved at the strategy stage with a startup, whatever his stage might be in his journey, and then design the complete operations plan for him, and then work with him week on week, fortnight on fortnight basis to monitor his operations plan, fine tune it, figure out what to change if there is an issue, and keep rethinking strategy with him as and when needed, till he reaches a growth, becomes a regular company and gets funded. So these are the 4 ways we engage with startups. Moving on quickly, the team is I'm Ravi Chalu, 42 plus years of industrial experience, serial entrepreneur, 5 plus years of deep SME and startup coaching experience. I also work with SMEs, typically in a turnover range of 25 crores to 500 crores. And I worked across multiple segments. And Anupma Singh, 17 plus years of experience, 9 plus years of entrepreneurial experience. And she leads IITK Startup Masterclass Outreach, has successfully set up 2 of her own startups. Sudeep Bhattacharya, 18 plus years of industry experience, high technology product development, 8 plus years experience in co-founding 3 startups, exited 2 successfully. We also have a team of facilitators and domain experts who we pull in depending on the situation, what the specific need a startup has. I think it's very important to start by defining what a startup is, because in our experience, most entrepreneurs have a really fuzzy understanding of what a startup is. From Government of India's perspective, it's an entity that is 5 years from date of incorporation, has had turnover not exceeding 25 crores in last 5 financial years. But this is where the fundamental definition comes. An organization that's innovating, developing, deploying, and commercializing new products, process, or service driven by technology or intellectual property. Emphasis is on this: innovating, developing, deploying, and commercializing new products, process, or service. So the question you have to really ask yourself, are you really innovating? What does innovation mean? You need to understand that. We'll spend some time in the presentation today to help you figure out what it means. And are you building a new product? What does it mean to build a new product? What does innovation mean? These are big questions which you must answer, because maybe you're not doing it at all. Or you could have a regular product. There's no innovation involved, a regular product, but you're opening new geographies or new customer segments. So best examples are Amazon sold books in America, Flipkart started selling it in India. New geography, new customer segment, therefore a startup. Flipkart is an e-commerce company in India. Meesho, largely working in tier 1 cities and metros. Meesho started similar services in tier 2, tier 3 cities and has become very successful. Is a startup because he's gone to new geography. So this is how Government of India defines it, but really for me, this is the true definition of a startup. It's a business, first of all. So you please start calling yourself a business. What kind of business? With an uncertain future. Why does it have an uncertain future? Because you're trying to address a problem a customer is facing. Very few entrepreneurs start from what problem I am addressing. He usually starts from what am I going to make, which is a do thing. It's not a think, plan, and execute. It is a do problem. I'm going to do this. Where is this problem occurring? In a job a customer is attempting to perform or wants to perform. What is different about you? What is the innovation that you're going to do? That you're going to solve the problem in a manner no one has addressed earlier. Best example, Redbus. Problem solved, the way you book tickets, availability of tickets. You had to go from travel agent to buy a ticket. Redbus innovated it and collected all free tickets and made it available on the net. New way of solving a problem customer is facing. Nobody had done it that way earlier. These are very critical definitions that you must please ingrain in your mind and ask yourself this and make a poster out of this and paste it in your room. Because no one has solved it earlier, it's based on a set of hypotheses about how to address them. It's a set of hypotheses. You don't know whether the customer will actually buy into the way you're solving it. You still don't know what are his gains and what pains he will undergo in taking your solution. And if the problem is addressed successfully within a defined business model, which is how are you going to make money and how are you going to deliver value proposition, then it should have the possibility of generating humongous future profits, critical phase for getting funded, getting serious funding. Because if your business is not showing growth traction, it's not showing growth rates which are growing at a crazy pace, you are not going to get funded. And then you will not become really a fast growing startup. You can still be a business and you could have sustainable growth. But chasing VC funds would be crazy. It won't work. So what will your journey be like? Let's look at that for a moment, because now it becomes important from marketing perspective. This was a research done in 1960s by one Dr. Roger. He was hired by American government to figure out how will the American farmers adopt the new potato seed. And what his research showed was that initially innovators pick up the product and they pick up for novelty. They like the newness of the idea. They are the experimenters. They like to try new stuff. And this forms about 2.5% of your market. I would like to stress again that this curve is extremely important for defining your shoestring budget. Without understanding this phenomena, you will not be able to do it. Okay, the next segment of customers that follows is early adopters, who actually look for competitive advantage. And they form 13.5% of the market. The next customer segment is what Dr. Rogers called early conservatives, and they look for benefits. This forms about 34% of your market. Followed by late conservatives who look for ease of use, and then laggards who follow rest of the world. This is very important because notice the first three segments. Innovators look for novelty, early adopters look for competitive advantage, and early conservatives look for benefit. Now, when you build a product, you actually have the majority market in your mind. But guess what? The customers who you're going to find first are here, the innovators. This is the nature of customer who's going to buy your product first. So therefore, this is where your focus should be first. How do you find innovators who will like the novelty in your product? So unless you build novelty and competitive advantage into your roadmap in the beginning, you may not find customers at the rate at which you want to find. This is extremely important to understand. To give you an example, let us say you have designed, you're a shoe manufacturer, and then you've designed a new material that you're going to use in the shoe. And this material gives you a great sense of comfort, and it also, you have three possible features. It gives you a great sense of comfort when you wear them. The second feature that you have is that people who like to run, it will improve their speed by at least 3 to 4%. The third aspect is that it absorbs sweat very well. Now, the first thing is novelty, the second feature is competitive advantage, and the third feature is benefits. If you try to sell this shoe because it's going to absorb, and you're a new company, you're just designed, you're not a regular manufacturer. Sorry, I made a mistake. You're a startup who's going to sell shoes and you design new shoes. If you start pitching sweat absorbing capability, you will find that it's going to take time to take off. But if you start selling the new experience, the sense of comfort, the people who are innovators, who like to try something new, are the kind of people who will respond first to you. So designing your messaging and your marketing strategy aligned with this curve becomes extremely important. This is the first step you take in cutting your marketing budget, in reducing your marketing budget, getting more bang for the buck. And this is how your sales are going to increase. Initially, they will be slow, so don't panic. Your growth rates will be slow. So if you are at this stage, keep in mind and keep observing, are you getting customers who are looking for novelty or competitive advantage or benefit? Because if you're still getting people who are customers who are looking for competitive advantage, your growth rate is going to be slow. So don't start pumping money into your campaigns unless you reach this part of the curve, where more and more customers are buying your product because of the benefits. So very often I find that entrepreneurs will actually start increasing their marketing budget here itself when they actually start getting some customers. But you will have to dovetail it with what is the nature of customer you are actually finding. The time when you should be really spending most of your money is here. And this curve applies across segments, applies across industries, it applies across all kinds of businesses. So please make this your basic, fundamental driver for your marketing. There's an excellent book written by a gentleman called Jeffrey A. Moore. The book is known as Crossing the Chasm. And basically marketing and selling high-tech products to mainstream customers. And Geoffrey Moore actually took what Dr. Rogers had found in 60s. And this book, I think, was written in late 90s or early 2000. And he took it to the next stage. He actually defined it in this manner, that this is your early market and this is your mainstream market. So the chasm between the early market moving from early adopters to early conservatives is much larger than you anticipate. 90% startups shut down here because they don't understand this transition, that as you're moving from your initial set of customers to your mainstream market, the way you message, your marketing strategy will change. So this is the second fundamental lesson you must remember at all times. You will not find your mainstream market in the beginning. And your early market is a really small share of your market. It's just about 14-15%. Whereas your mainstream market is going to form rest of the 85%. Another gentleman, Steve Blank, very successful entrepreneur. He actually wrote the Bible, the book on lean startup model. And he also teaches entrepreneurship at Stanford University. His vision was that you get technology enthusiasts initially, the innovators, followed by visionaries. And this is really your customer development stage, according to him. And you are really churning your product features, turning them around, constantly working with customers to figure out what is giving you traction, till you reach a point when you find that your sales curve will start growing here. Till then, you are just trying to find that magic formula. So don't make the mistake of spending bulk of your marketing money here. You will run out of the money. This is also known as valley of death. This is where most startups actually close, because they run out of money at this stage itself. Moving on. And this is the mainstream market where you'll actually find, I like the words that Steve Blank uses. Instead of early conservatives, he calls them pragmatists, which is actually the right definition. Then finally you get conservatives, followed by skeptics. So this is how your market is going to be. You're going to get technology enthusiasts, visionaries, pragmatists, conservatives, and finally skeptics. And this is the third lesson you need to remember. Now, actually, what will happen to you? You will actually have to do your ideation and prototyping and technology creation well before you actually start doing customer development. But most startups combine this. And they run out of money because they have not spent time here. You should not spend your sales and marketing money at this point in time. There are other ways of doing it. This is the time where you do customer interviews, you interact personally with people. It doesn't matter whether it's a B2C product or a B2B product, but you pick up your bag, you go out in the marketplace and you meet people. You see what people are saying about how you are trying to solve the problem. It's only when you have a reasonable sense of market, then you move. To give you an example, in early 2000, there's a thing who wanted to set up a company selling shoes online. And how did he start thinking about it? He looked around and he saw that there are far many more shoe manufacturers than the number of brands a shop carries. So he saw a gap and he said, how do I create a business where all possible shoe brands can be available to the customer. And he figured the only way to do that is go on the net. But he realized that if he tried to do that by first talking to all kinds of manufacturers, then he will run out of money, and he didn't have bandwidth to get all manufacturers on. So he found Aware Media. What he thought was, let me go So he defined his marketing problem. He said, let me figure the market out first. And then he solved the supply chain problem in a very interesting manner. He said, I will go around to shoe shops in my city, in my neighborhood, and see if they are willing to sell their shoes online through me. And he got traction. So what he would do is, he decided on a set of shops. He would go take photographs of all the shoes that they carried. And he created a website spending close to $1,000 in his marketing activities and the website. And he would publish these photographs on his website at a certain price and sell the shoes. And sure enough, he started getting orders, not enough, 5 orders, 6 orders, 8 orders. The moment he got an order, he would know which shop he had got the photograph from. He would go to that shop, pick the product up, pay for the product, package it, and ship it. Remember, the customer has already paid him. So he got the money before he invested in stock. This company finally became the largest online shoe retailer called Zappos. This is how you actually do marketing on shoestring budgets. That you spend a time in figuring out this, and then you spend time at lowest cost doing customer development before you actually start sinking money into building your product or building your market. Two key things. So this is the fourth step you need to take to do marketing on a shoestring budget. If you've already run out of money, go find more money. So what are you really doing initially? You're doing what we call market-focused business and product development. You're constantly evolving your product, and your whole entire purpose is to find a way to jump across this so that you reach this market. And once you cross, then you grow and scale. So this is where money needs to come in for growth. And at that stage, you have got VC funding. At this stage, you have got angel funding. At this stage, you are going to get seed funding. But at this stage, it is going to be personal funds. So you need to plan this very carefully. Unfortunately, most entrepreneurs don't even sit down and make a financial plan. So if you've done thorough work at this stage, you will know exactly how to promote here and then how to promote here. Because your customer interactions would have told you what is getting traction from the customers. Okay, moving on. So I've given you context of how people in the US have built their frameworks for how do you actually develop your market. We've taken to the next stage, through 5 cousins, idea to execution. So this is your idea technology breakthrough stage. And unfortunately, almost all entrepreneurs invariably will start looking for an investor here. They don't want to put their money. It doesn't work that way. Without your skin in the game, you're not going to get money. You can't build a company at this stage. It doesn't happen. So please stop looking for the investor. He will not be there. He'll not be available for you to invest, for you to build a company. In fact, it's the other way. He's looking for a high growth company where he can invest so that his money can multiply. And you go through these stages. You will first identify an opportunity. Based on what analysis you have done, you will discover a set of features, a minimum value proposition, which will start getting you customers from the innovators and early adopter stage, the visionaries and the technology enthusiasts. And then product, which is actually you're now gradually building your MVP into a full product, which will help you cross the chasm, as Jeffrey Moore and as Steve Blank have defined. And finally, once you jump across that chasm, then you are in the solution stage, and then you build your market and finally become a company. There are multiple stages. This is where you'll probably actually start getting a sense of a vision for the company or an aspiration for the company. What can this company be? And as you start getting customers from early adopters and technology enthusiasts and visionaries, you will start building a team, building your product. Remember, we showed you that initial stage is really business and market and product development stage. And you will hire a sales team at this stage to sell. In the earlier stages, when you are here, you are the best salesman. So stop wasting money in hiring sales team at this stage. You can't afford it. So that's your sixth tip for going on shoestring budget. You hire when you clearly, if you look at what we showed you earlier, this is where you hire your sales team. When you have enough customers that you have gathered yourself. Okay, moving on. And after you get success at this stage, and this is where you're jumping the chasm, as defined by Jeffrey Moore, by Dr. Rogers, confirmed by Steve Blank. And now you're discovering your business model, which will help you go to the pragmatists. And then followed by building up the market, which is really scaling and growing. Now, as we have seen in our experience in India, you have 5 chasms. You don't have one chasm, you have 5 chasms where entrepreneurs fail. First, figuring the opportunity out, that itself is a chasm. And then being able to develop customers. The way to actually cross this chasm is constantly interact with the customers and initial set of customers, figure out what do they want, keep churning your product till you hit the right feature and MVP, which will get you the early adopters. Now you're going to face another chasm, which is product go-to-market fit. That is, start finding the pragmatist customers. Actually, this is what in most of these Western frameworks is defined as the chasm. This entire stretch is the chasm for we break it into 2 separate chasms. There is a product go-to-market fit chasm, and then there is a business model discovery chasm. Startups can fail at any one of these 3. Then followed by go-to-market strategy chasm. You may not discover the right marketing strategy for building your organization. And finally, growth. Startups have failed at each of these stages. So critical for you, where it will matter for you to really conserve your marketing dollars is here. And bulletproofing your startup is nothing but a 5-stage systematic approach to coaching to help entrepreneurs cross the product company gap, which is this entire 5 Kazims journey for you. You have an idea for a product and you want to build a company on that. Okay, before we go ahead, I can take questions at this stage. Any questions so far? Because after this, I will start talking about how do you manage funnel in early stages. I see a lot of messages on chat. Let me just check chat.
Yeah, so the first
Just a quick question, sir.
Yep.
So conserve the gist of that slide was conserve your marketing or sales dollars in the first 2 stages, opportunity and the feature MVP, right?
Yep.
So the other side of that is in parallel, if we have to start doing some promotional marketing, figuring it out, all of that, I think instead of spending money, maybe the founders themselves need to be doing that, I guess, right? If we are doing something.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Who's speaking? Sorry, I didn't get the name.
Sorry, this is Vinod Podar.
Oh. Okay, Vinod. Yeah, go ahead. You're absolutely right. The entrepreneur should get out and market and sell. And you can run small campaigns on Facebook, which don't cost you more than 1,500 to 2,000 rupees per campaign to get a small set of customers who you can go talk to.
Got it.
But don't spend big money at that stage. Customer dev and product go-to-market fit, you should be picking up bag yourself and going. You start hiring team around product the moment you see traction on product go-to-market fit. Okay, Monica.
Vinod
There are multiple messages, not all are questions.
Vinod had another question. Could you define organic and inorganic lead, if there is such a term?
Common layman, could you define organic and inorganic leads, if there is such a term? So I would not say inorganic. Probably the term is to have how do you drive traction? What do you do to drive traction? Organic is where your natural momentum of business gets you leads. But for driving traction, you will have to do different things. So for example, so let us say you got a reasonable pipeline going and you're selling. The sales team is going out, they're finding new customers, you're getting new inquiries, but you're not happy with your growth rate. And let's for a moment say you're in fashion industry, you make garments for women. Now, and for some reason, somehow in your past, you knew, let's say, let's take some actress, Kareena Kapoor. And you work with Kareena Kapoor and you tell her, hey, I'm going to give you 20% of my company if you become an influencer on various social channels. Now, here you're doing something that is going to push your sales beyond what your own capability is. That is the fundamental difference between organic sales, which your own organization is doing with its capability, and then you pull in some partners, some methodology, some technique, which actually completely takes your sales through the roof. My advice to you is, don't get stuck with these terms. These are you'll spend the next 1 week just figuring out, okay, how do I do organic sales? How do I do inorganic sales? It's very fundamental. Who's going to spend marketing dollars and sales dollars for getting what result? So for example, if somebody is growing and he's not happy, he's a child, he's 5 feet, he wants to become 6 feet 4 inches. And he starts taking all kinds of tonic. Now he's giving himself, all kinds of feeds which he normally would not have taken, in the hope that he'll grow faster. Sasank Gandhi, do you help in organic lead generation as well? Sasank, we will coach you how to get organic leads. But ultimately, it is you and your sales team who has to get that.
There's a question on what is product life cycle.
Monica, sorry, Sudeep, I'll come to that. My expectation from this webinar is to get the path forward on how to plan my marketing strategy with minimum budget. Okay. Product life cycle, Rajiv Mohan. So product life cycle is from the time you conceive of a product till the product becomes antiquated, though it is now no longer relevant for the marketplace. So you need to reinvent the product and recreate either a replacement or redefine your product. I think the best example for this is Tally. I don't know how many of you have heard or used Tally. Tally is a very, very popular accounting system. And Tally continued to be a PC-based offline product for a very long time and very successfully, till they figured out that their sales are dropping. And it was only when their sales started dropping, they realized that now it is only skeptics who are looking at their product. They reinvented the product. They came out with a cloud version. They have come out with an enterprise version, which again gave their sales a kick up. So every product has its life cycle where you have to either reinvent the product or redesign the product. Ashish Bedekar has sent you a document, everyone. So you can use that document. Okay.
Galaxy J7 has a question.
How to identify, Ashish Bedekar, how to identify where you are in the stage? Ashish, can you come on and so that we can have a conversation? Please turn your audio on.
Yeah, hi. So just wanted to know if there are any specific matrices which one should track along this journey. So these matrices will give you an idea. I mean, you have a general feel where you are in the stage, but any specific matrices or KPIs to track, which will really help refine the effort.
Ashish, what do you do? What does your startup do?
So we are into the B2B space. We are a edge computing hybrid CDN. So already we have got.
I thought I heard. Ashish, your voice is rather faint, so it's very difficult to follow what you're saying. Hello? I can't hear Ashish. Hopefully he'll come back. Galaxy J7. Galaxy J7, please identify yourself so that we can answer that for you. His question is, how do you market in the first 3 months of starting up? Okay, Galaxy J7 is not coming on, so I'll move past this because the question is very general. Unless you become very specific what your startup is, what business you are in, it'll be very difficult to answer that question generally. My advice to you is go back to the technology adoption curves we've shown you, identify, and you can through research, market research and surveys, identify different kinds of customers, which is he a technology enthusiast? Is he a visionary? Is he a pragmatist? What is he looking for? Is he looking for benefit? Is he looking for advantage? Is he looking for experience? What is he looking for? Just remember that people buy only for one of these three things or combination: new experience, competitive advantage, or benefit. There is nothing outside these three which people use to buy anything for. Okay, Nick, for a fitness startup, I guess you're saying how to identify, how to do marketing for a fitness in first 3 months of starting up, right? Okay. So what is, Nick, let's go back to definition of the startup. Can you help us understand what is the job the customer is trying to do, for which, and what is the problem he is facing in that job that you are going to solve differently? Because answer lies there. And nobody else has solved it in that manner so far. Nick, you'll have to come online because this is very, very difficult. You keep sending phrases to me and I don't know how to respond to you. Personalized fitness training, what does it mean?
Okay.
Hello?
Nick, can you turn your mic on?
Yeah, okay. Assigning a fitness trainer to a customer, what's so new about it? There are so many companies who do that. What are you doing different? See, that is where the difficulty lies, Nick. Unless you can specify that, okay, this is what I'm doing differently, your entire sales and marketing will be driven from there. So giving today in COVID time, having personalized fitness trainers, how are they going to train personally? Are they going to do it over the net? Are they going to come to your house? Can they come to your house? How do they interact? I mean, those questions have to be answered. Okay, I understand. Nick, almost every personal trainer has switched to online video calls. I can give you names of at least 400-500 trainers in Bangalore itself who are doing this. What is different? You could say there's nothing different. Then we can answer that question accordingly. And it's not a startup in that case. It's a business. Okay, very difficult to close this. Nick, you can reach out to us separately, because doing this over chat where you send phrases is very difficult. Okay, moving on. Ashish Bedekar, you are back. Okay, Nick, then I suggest you just look at how people are promoting it online and copy it. Because a business already exists, see what is different, then you can position yourself. We do a workshop on competitive positioning. So now you have to figure out what's your competitive positioning and how do you reach out to our audience. And how do you actually differentiate yourself? So if you want more details, I suggest you get in touch with Anupma and we can have a one-on-one conversation with you. Ashish, I want to come back to your point. You just joined back.
Yeah, so I will contact you separately because
okay, fine.
I'm interested in this. I'll contact you.
Okay, thanks. Moving on. So let's spend some time on the marketing funnel, B2C versus B2B. I think this is the other challenge we see, that entrepreneurs are not aware about sales and marketing funnel. They don't understand how to use a funnel. Really speaking, there are these 6 stages to the entire process of you reaching out and customers buying from you. Starts with awareness. Where you are trying to reach out to a customer who's searching for information. So in your early stages, when you're still figuring out whether this idea is worth it, is it worth chasing? and you are trying to figure out that if you made a product which serviced this, how do you actually find out if customers will actually like it or want it? So you can do very small, low-cost surveys on Facebook, or you can run small one-page, two-page websites and do promotion on Google search or use any other way of promoting and getting an audience onto your website or responding to your Facebook campaign and figuring out what is the audience saying about that specific problem to be solved. Are they responding? Are they willing to commit money? And if you start reading about A to B, if you start reading about how do you conduct these research programs, research surveys on net, there is so much available on the net which will give you methods and techniques. If you want to work with us, we can separately help you create these programs. But these are very low-cost probes which help you understand in the first two stages, which is idea stage, idea to opportunity stage, and then discovering innovators and early adopters. Once you have people responding to you, you have to figure out, okay, how do you create interest? The only way you can create interest is figuring out gains and pains. What does he gain and what is the pain he will undergo? How severe is the problem? And you would have done enough work at the awareness stage to find answers to this question. So, and this entrepreneurs should get involved themselves. Talk to customers. Don't try to hire a team at this stage, because you yourself must be aware what works at awareness stage. How do you generate interest? What do we say to the customer which actually generates interest? These is what we call scripts. For each stage in your funnel, you generate scripts and you constantly keep tuning them and finding out what scripts are working, what are not working. This is the 7th step you must undertake to reduce your marketing spend. And the next stage is consideration. What do you do to make him consider your option? Again, you script it, you get involved yourself. And then you move him to intent. And this is really a science. That we do a workshop on early stage marketing where we go deeper into this. How do you really use funnel and how do you reduce your costs by optimizing the funnel? But I think your takeaway from this slide has to be that you have to design your funnel from your own personal experience of converting customers at the early adopter and at the customer development, during customer development with early adopters and with innovators or technology enthusiasts and visionaries. Because once you figure out script, then you can hire a sales team. Because now you have the map for how to convert leads into orders. Again, next stage is evaluation. The customer is evaluating various, maybe he doesn't have any other option. So take the Redbus case. How do you think they would have done it? So for them, first of all, they might have started small campaigns on the net advertising that you can book tickets online. Maybe they reached out to friends, to groups and started pushing it without really spending money. And once they generated interest, they figured out, okay, how do we get people to really interested in what we are doing. So their successes, success stories, people's giving them testimonials would have worked. So this is how you go step by step, design your entire marketing and sales funnel and optimize for effectiveness and cost efficiency. This is a science. You must do this very, very rigorously. Any questions on marketing funnel? I guess not. So I'm going to move on. So going back to that whole technology adoption curve and figuring out where are your initial customers going to come from. Your first 100 customers are going to come from innovators and early adopters. And that growth rate will be slow. So don't get carried away with the growth. Don't get carried away with the fact that you've got customers. And here, don't create a sales team to get that. Do 90% of the work yourself, because that will really give you an idea of whether your product is getting traction in the marketplace or not. So instead of trying to convince the masses first, which is your majority market, which is here, work with innovators and early adopters first. So what is going to happen? You're going to have 3 different distinct go-to-market strategies. So you have a go-to-market strategy that is focused largely on innovators, but some early adopters. And it is driven by the newness of the technology part of the product, the newness, the new experience, and competitive advantage. This will be followed by your go-to-market strategy 2. This is where you can start increasing your budgets. The first go-to-market strategy must be dependent completely on the entrepreneurs. The second go-to-market strategy is now where you're trying to grow your product and you're hired a sales team. By this time, you have actually figured out your sales and marketing funnel so that you can drive your team efficiently. You can measure team performance by numbers. This is another place that makes sales and marketing very expensive. Entrepreneurs don't drive their performance through numbers. Sudeep, I don't know whether Veristic Aligners, Shamal is on this presentation.
No, he's not.
Okay. So we recently implemented this in one of the startups where we are doing deep coaching. And his inquiries and conversions have doubled just by implementing sales funnel. 0 increase in marketing budget, 0 increase in sales team. So guys, putting money into advertising dollars is not the way. A lot of work can be done in simply improving your internal efficiency around the sales funnel. And how do you manage sales? How do you become numbers driven? Okay, next. Your main strategy will actually come after this, which is your go-to-market strategy through the time when you're building your business model and you are actually crossing this chasm, go-to-market strategy chasm. A lot of startups fail at this stage also. By this time, you got VC funding. So now you don't have to worry about money, but you will have to worry about your effectiveness and efficiency. And don't forget, your first 100 customers is critical for you. The entrepreneur has to drive it himself. So I'm now coming towards the last part of my workshop. How do you design? What is the groundwork you'll have to do for designing your marketing strategy? Because if you got this right, you will find that you will be able to save a lot of money. The first thing that you have to have clarity about, critical questions you have to answer. We tried to do this with Nick. What will you be innovating? Product, service, prevailing business model, business process or part thereof, or a revenue model? What will you be innovating? This was, if you remember the Government of India definition, this is exactly what they have said a startup should be doing: innovating, developing, deploying, commercializing new product or a service. Because if you don't have an answer to innovating, your cost of marketing is going to grow. And this is what happens to most startups. They don't have clarity and therefore they are unable to design their marketing messaging. What will it be driven by? Are you going to create a new app or something? Is it a new way of doing things? Or is there an intellectual property involved, which is around a process or a service? What is it that really is going to drive this? So for example, going back to Nick's point, for example, if there was a way of designing a virtual reality AI piece of software, which would actually work with a customer in its own time. Give me a minute. Somebody's actually trying to write on the screen. Please don't do that. So, and what will it be new market segment or geography? So, give me a minute. I want to turn off the annotation. And will it be in a new market segment or a geography? To give you an example, you could do something that somebody is already doing in metros, but take it to semi-urban India or rural India and do it there. So that's a new geography. Or maybe right now the customers are in a certain socioeconomic class. You could go to a different socioeconomic class with the same kind of a service at a lower cost. So there are multiple ways of playing this game, but you must be clear, what are you really doing? These critical questions, if you haven't answered, you will waste a lot of money marketing because your messaging will not be sharp. You will not be, your campaigns will not be targeted well, and you will spend a lot of money. And this is something which 100% startups ignore because they're so focused on doing. We have a product, let's advertise. Yeah, but who will you advertise to? What's your marketing message? What's your competitive strategy? What's your competitive positioning? What's your communication strategy? You're not thought through. So guys, it's not so simple. And I'm really surprised. I want to repeat this to you guys again and again. You will not start swimming in a sea if you don't know how to swim. But you're ready to jump into a business without any training, without any learning, and expect to succeed. Not happening. You will have to do the groundwork if you want to succeed. Otherwise, you will, stumble along, and finally some miracle will happen, and 1 or 2% suddenly succeed because of the miracle. Or you're a great communicator. You can convince somebody who's got a lot of money to give you money, and then you can try and grow with that money. But that possibility is very small. Chat. And while you're doing this, you will have to think of these 5 things simultaneously, even if you don't understand it. It doesn't matter. It is like swimming. When you start swimming, you go to shallow end, you learn how to float, you learn how to move your hands, you learn step by step. You will have to do those things. And initially you will not succeed, but there are frameworks existing. If you go to our site, you can pick up these frameworks. We've already referred them there. Try to use them. And it doesn't matter even if you do only 10%, 20% right. Gradually with practice, you will improve as you keep iterating. So based on this, then you have to, the question you have to ask is, okay, how differentiated am I? How will I tell the customer, hey, I'm different? Give me a minute. I'm just trying to clear this annotation. Yep. And guys, this is another poster you should stick in your room. What should your value proposition statement look like? This is what it should look like. My value proposition is for target customers. Define it. Who is my target customer? What market segment will you operate in? Who are dissatisfied with current alternatives? Who will you compete with? You must have those answers ready. Our product service is what does the product do in terms of solving problem? What function does, what job does it help the customer do? That provides key solving problem capability. What problem will you solve for the customer? Unlike the current product alternative, how is your solution better? So you must find answers to these 6 questions. What market segment will you operate in? Who will you compete with? What value are you generating for the customer, gains and pains? What does your product do? What problem will you solve for the customer? How is your solution better? Without answering these questions, you cannot design a marketing strategy. Very fundamental. And if you don't do this, you will spend a lot of money. Do this, you will get it right. You will reduce your cost. We very actively use this framework, customer jobs to do, in our coaching, and this framework is published on our website. You can have a look at that. So fundamentally, you'll have to look at what is the nature of job the customer is doing. Is it a functional job? Is it an emotional job? Is it a social job? To explain this to you, you have just graduated from college and now you have got a job, and job requires you to wear formal dress. You can no longer go in jeans and t-shirt. So now in order to be able to perform your job at this company, you will have to buy formal shirts and trousers. But let's change this slightly. Okay, you started working and you bought your formal job, and you have an interest in one member of the opposite sex, and you want to ask that person out for a date, and that person agrees. Now you don't want to wear your regular office wear or your regular jeans. You want to buy a decent shirt, a better looking shirt for that particular event. Now it's an emotional job. It's no longer functional. And now your company tells you, you know what, we like how you're working. We want you to go attend client meetings. We don't want you to go wearing just a shirt. You must buy a suit. It's again become a functional job. Now your parents come and tell you, you know what, you have to go attend this marriage, and you need to buy a dress for that marriage. So you decide you will buy an achkan or some other more fashionable garment. Now it's a social job. The product being sold is still the same. It's a garment. But it's the type of job that the customer is trying to do that will determine what is the nature of his requirement and how will you position it to him. Without this understanding, you will never be able to design the right messaging. And without designing right messaging, you will not be able to control your marketing costs. In order to figure out further, then you also need to do what we say need analysis. What is the underlying need? So the first case where the person needs to buy a formal shirt and trouser to attend job, it is blatant critical. So there are 2 dimensions. Vertical here is problem visibility and horizontal is customer need. So customer need can be aspirational or critical. Problem visibility can be latent or blatant. So clearly buying a shirt for office wear is blatant critical. You have no choice. But when you had to actually go go on a date with somebody, it became aspirational, but it is blatant. That is a consumer commodity kind of situation. So different situations, same product, but the job that the customer trying to perform changed, the need changed. So it becomes critical to understand this part. What is the underlying nature of need? Once you figure this out, then you can start looking at, okay, how do you plan to compete? Now, given all this, you've figured out the 3 critical questions, you've figured out jobs to do, you've figured out nature of need. Now you have some idea how you're going to compete. And you can decide, will your idea serve a latent critical need? Then you're in a very strong position. What kind of problem are you solving? Unworkable, unavoidable, urgent, or underserved? We cover these in great detail in our idea to opportunity. So I will not be going in deeper here because it's going to take at least 10-15 minutes explaining this framework. Are you just going to automate a task and make it more efficient? Nick is actually in the 3rd category. He's just going to try to make fitness more efficient. Therefore, he'll find more competition. He'll find it very difficult to acquire customers unless he does something different. And if in automating a task or making it more efficient, your marketing costs are going to go up. So you need to go back to the drawing board and change what you're doing. But remember, customers buy products or service to help get a job done. The job becomes fundamental. The nature of the job becomes fundamental. So will your idea truly disrupt the market or just make sustainable improvement or drive efficiency? Again, becomes a very critical factor for competitive positioning. So unless you have clarity over what are you really doing, you will not be able to design effective and less expensive marketing campaigns. Then you have to figure out what's your competitive strategy. Are you going to compete with the incumbents? Nick will have to compete with the incumbents. He has no choice. Are you going to enter bottom of the market? Maybe he can adopt that strategy. You know, I'm going to drop prices to such a level that, and he's going to fund that drop, which is what most VCs do through discounting of product. And enter the bottom of the market so that he gets more customers. At some point in time, he'll have to figure out how to start raising his prices or reducing his costs. Or you can go where there is no competition. There is no consumption. People are still not taking personal training. So for example, he could become niche of fitness. He could say, I'm going to actually do this in tier 2, tier 3 towns, where availability of quality fitness trainers are not available. So he could change the game. He could select a market segment where fitness trainers are not available. Quality fitness trainers are not available and work with that segment. So you will have to think like this in order to reduce your marketing costs. The next thing that you'll have to do is start figuring out how do you position your product. And most entrepreneurs and businessmen, forget entrepreneurs, businessmen, fail in this in India. Very few understand this part. So most of them focus on technology, which is really features. They will say, okay, my feature does this, my product does this feature, that feature. Challenge with features is that easily consumers, buyers can very easily compare and defend. You also have to figure out how does a customer behave with a product vis-a-vis pricing. So price becomes another factor. So let's take an example. Economist, I don't know how many of you have read or are aware about a magazine called Economist. In 2005, Economist wanted to shift its subscription from print to digital. The print version was selling for, I think, $100 and digital they announced at $20. And 2-3 years they tried, they found that people who were using print would not shift to digital version. And they wanted to break this because their costs of printing were very high and their profits were getting affected. So they came out with a strategy, what we call decoy strategy in pricing. They came out with an ad, which from your perspective, on the left-hand side, had an ad for the Digital Economist, digital subscription for $20. And then in the middle, they had print subscription for $100. Then on the right, they had print and digital for $100. Now the customers who were taking print version, their psychology changed. They now saw that digital version coming as free. Arey, ye to free hai. And they started subscribing for print and digital, which is exactly what economists wanted. Economists' strategy was that if they subscribe for digital and gradually over a period of time, they get used to consuming digital, they will switch from print to digital. And sure enough, within the next 3 years, 60% of business went to print, digital version. And exactly same product, digital for $20, allowed 60% conversion because they played around with consumers' mind on pricing. The last thing is in this is psychology. How do you use psychology to influence customer? How do you press buttons in his head so that he buys your product? So as long as you're selling on feature and technology, you will spend far more money on marketing than you would if you combine these three. So let's understand, what does it mean in terms of psychology? It's emotions. You work on people's emotions. My advice to you would be go online, look at advertisements for cream called Move. YouTube has those ads. It is amazing how they have created a very successful cream for body aches and pains. If I was to ask you, do you know what are the ingredients of Move cream? Those of you who have used Move or Volini or whatever cream you have used, what are the ingredients? Why is it effective? How much time does it take? You will have no clue. But somewhere somebody pressed a button in your mind. Some advertiser pressed a button in your mind to influence your decision. Fog Deo is another great example of this. Fog Deo basically came out of the punchline, only perfume, no gas. And why did it work? Because when a deo ends at the end of its life, you hear the sound fuss fuss, but you don't get any perfume out of it. And you know it's just gas. And that one line, pressing that one button, made Fog the most successful deo campaign we've seen recently. So guys, it is not features that will help you sell. Don't make that mistake. If you understand jobs to do well, if you understand what is the underlying problem, what are customers' pains, you can press the right buttons to make him buy your product. This thinking will also help you reduce your budgets. So don't think rationally about your product. Go to the irrational side. Think about underlying emotions that will cause him to buy your product. What buttons can you associate which will cause him to buy your product? So that brings me to the end of this workshop, and we can take questions now.
Nick says, haha. Guys, any questions? Ram is here, Ramnath, Richard.
There is somebody called Lucknow Event Friends waiting for your value proposition. Not clear what the question is.
So I have a doubt. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure. Who is this?
My name is Shashank, sir.
Yeah, Shashank, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So initially in the starting stages, in the pre-revenue stage, instead of going for a marketing expense, can we promote in terms of offers kind of thing, like referral bonuses?
So referrals assumes that you already have a customer base, right?
No, sir. We are in the pre-revenue stage.
Pre-revenue stage, but who will refer? Who's the person who's going to refer?
Initially, we are going to just refer to the local people. As they move on, they are going to refer it.
What's your product? What do you do?
We provide online pollution checkups and it's like entire vehicle services. Sir. We assist in buying a vehicle, selling a vehicle, repairs, maintenance, RTO services.
Okay.
Even we help you to earn through your vehicle as well by giving it for rentals and leases.
Okay. So
Yes.
the multiple. So first of all, Shashank, what I would worry about is there are multiple value propositions out there: buying, selling, renting, repairs. So it's going to be. You would have to spend a lot of time thinking about how you're going to position yourself, especially since you're pre-revenue. So if I was you, I would break this into 4 different value propositions, and I would write down in that value proposition statement that we showed you, I would write down each value proposition. And then I would figure out where is the gap, where is the opportunity, where are customers facing maximum pain, and be able to pinpoint. And then I would also figure out who am I going to compete with in that space. Because without that, designing any marketing campaign is going to be very, very challenging. You're trying to do too many things, is my first response.
Actually, sir, for starting, we are going with the pollution checkups, sir. Doorstep pollution checkups. So for starting, within 1 or 2 months, we are going to do that. Once we get ahead, we are going to gradually start with another services.
Very
it's
good.
like not entirely once we are launching.
Very good. I think it's a very good way of doing customer acquisition. That, okay, start with pollution check on site. So you create a portable mechanism. Maybe you take a Maruti van or something and create your entire mechanism in a van. We can do all that stuff. And the question is, how do you find customers?
Yes, right? So for that, what I thought is for example, we charge generally 80 rupees for a bike for a pollution. For the starting, what I am planning is, if you pay once, you get twice an year. For example, if you pay 80 rupees an year, you get, generally for bikes, we need to do twice an year. So if you pay once, we are going to do it twice. So instead of going for marketing expenses, this would generally give the database what I think is.
So Shashank, my first observation here is that I haven't heard what is the critical problem that the customer is trying to solve. So the critical problem, from what I hear from you, seems to be price. That now he can get 2 checkups per year in a reduced amount. Now, is that something that is critical for him? Is that what is the largest problem he has? Personally, from my experience, my biggest problem is I don't remember when to get my renewal.
Yes, sir. That's the most important thing. We also remind that thing as well.
So I think I would design the entire initial strategy around that.
So yes, sir. It's one of the benefit that we provide, like vehicle management solution we provide as well. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
So for the pre-revenue stage, we're trying to discover new customers. I would focus just on that single capability. I would forget. Yeah, I can hear you. So Rakesh, your name is Grandi or Gandhi?
Shashank Grandi, sir. Grandhi.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Sir, I can hear you.
Okay,
Grandi,
great.
yes.
Shashank, initially for pre-revenue stage, I would purely focus on just one capability, that I do a pollution check at your home and I will take care of it whenever it is renewal. I would go that way, because don't overcomplicate your messaging, because then customers, you have only 10 to 15 seconds window to grab a customer's attention. And if you try to say too many things, you're going to lose his attention. And this is something we can discuss more offline. I'm only trying to use this example so that others understand why focusing on the most important problem is critical. And don't try to solve too many problems in pre-revenue stage. You can talk about other things that you will do in future once the customer shows interest. So for example, he signs up for, let's say he signs up for a vehicle pollution check at home. Once he's signed up, he's paid you, and he's got a service, then you can also say, hey, sir, we also do preventive maintenance of vehicles at home. So your upsell, cross-sell strategy has to be in place. My advice is that don't try to do too many things. Okay, we can go to the next question. Nick, can you give us a hack for finding an? Nick, I just gave it to you. Go to tier 2, tier 3 towns with fitness trainers from metros, because you will not have high quality trainers in tier 2, tier 3 towns. Explore that market. Monica Nayan, for emotional connect, how can we link through marketing message? Monica, you have to figure out. So for example, there's a very good ad campaign by Vodafone. So Vodafone sells B2B services to small businesses. And there are beautiful campaigns which has nothing to do with B2B services. But they tell you a great emotional story and then they connect that to their service. Let me see if I can play that for you guys. Hang on. Okay, videos. Give me a minute. I'm trying to play that video within this. There is a way of doing that. Share screen. Can you guys see this video? Sudip?
Yes, we can, Ravi.
Okay, let me see if I have got the sound turned on. Sound is turned on. But I can't hear the sound, so there is some issue. Anyway, I'll just quickly see, this whole ad is about, this lady's got a small shop running and her husband quickly goes to a side, gets a photograph from the online, and now he'll create a design according. So nice story being told, woman entrepreneur setting up a small shop. He goes to, and he's saying, okay, why don't you upload this to internet? See the brand, live more, grow your business on Vodafone, Superphone, whatever. Okay. So the point that I was trying to make was that it has nothing to do, the story that they told has nothing to do with the brand. But you narrate a beautiful emotional story, and then in the end, you just connect the brand. That the brand is going to make this experience true for you. So to your question, Monica, you have to figure out a way of, so I don't know whether you're going to be a B2B or B2C. You'll have to figure out what buttons to press. Let me also same time show you the Move ad. A very interesting ad. Okay, where is it? Yep. Sorry guys, I can't turn on the sound. I'm trying to do that, but I don't know why it's not playing. Okay, I'll go to share screen. This is a Move statue ad. The husband and wife, husband watching TV, wife says statue, takes the remote away, tickles him, starts running around, and suddenly she gets a prick in her back. Ah, and now this guy will get Move cream, it applies Move cream. This campaign was known as Aha Se Aha Tak campaign. Nowhere in the story they tell you what is great about Move cream, but they tell you a great emotional story. And the fundamental thing it was based upon is that the women of the house have a complaint with the men of the house that men of the house don't take care of their women. This is a button which the advertising agency realized, and they based the entire campaign just on that one button. Aha Se Aha Tak became a very successful campaign. So again, I think the takeaway is nowhere in this campaign are they talking about features or price, but the entire idea of marketing messages to get customers mind share, to make him pause, break his preoccupation, make him pause and start consuming what you are offering. So that is the key. How will you create that marketing message which actually will pause the customer and make him listen to you? So it is not straightforward, is the caution I have for you guys. Monica, I don't know whether this has answered your question, but you know, this is how you really establish emotional connect in marketing campaigns.
Yeah, thank you, Ravi. I've got some idea.
Okay. What are the marketing channels should be used by startups which are most cost effective? Divyesh, wo dekhna padega. It depends on what your business is. Should it be LinkedIn? Should it be Facebook? Should it be Twitter? Need to see your business, understand your business. Any other questions? I don't think so. So Dev, over to you. Let me make you the host. You're the host.
Okay. Thank you, Ravi sir. Ramnath, are you trying to say something? You came unmute. You unmuted yourself. Okay, he went back to. Okay, thank you, everybody. I think can we do a quick round of takeaways or specifics that you have absorbed today that you can go back and apply to your ventures or start thinking in a certain direction? Would you all like to share? Abhilash, you want to start? Vinod, yeah, Vinod, please come in.
Yeah. So I loved the last slide, the rational to the irrational journey. And in our B2C business, I think we have adopted that technique. The example is why a person wants to move from one place to another place, say from HSR to Electronic City. So what we try to understand is what are the pains, the school needs of the kids or the family, you know, don't want to travel too far. We go a little bit deeper on that And then once you understand the pain, I think you can bring in options, and the person doesn't talk about the price anymore. He starts talking about, hey, how do you satisfy my requirement? So that is truly a great example of moving to an emotional connect rather than a features or a price-based discussion.
Good point. Vinod, just to add to that, it's a question of adding, talk value, don't talk price. Because if you talk price, then that becomes the conversation. Talk value, price disappears.
Yes, thank you. That's a good term, yes.
Thanks, Vinod.
Hey, Sudeep.
Yeah, Bilash.
Hello. Hi, Sudeep. Hi, everybody. Bilash here. The thing is like the one thing which Sir was emphasizing is like a startup when you're in very early stages don't have your sales team. So that is one point which Sir was stressing on more, and we are actually taking the same suggestion, and we are already we are already getting coached by Sudeep and team. Like any startup, the founders have to do the step A, B, C to unless and until you cross the first two customs. So that's the main takeaway that we have got it actually. Thank you.
Bilash. CSC. Who is CSC? Daniel, do you want to say something? Would like to brief? Divyesh? Geeta? Hitesh?
So I think what I got from this is that the fundamental principles, right?
Yeah, Divyesh.
Any of your thinking. So I think what Ravi sir provides you is the bedrock on which you will need to build. So, and if your foundation is strong, then I think chances of success are much more. So in all of the workshops, that's what we get. So that was really helpful.
Thanks, Divyesh. Geeta?
Yeah, I am crossing the chasm and building the next level. First, you have market fit, the product, everything, and then the solution. Now our company Greater Synergy Solutions, we are in that stage now. So I am taking how to get that customers reference, whole products, the business model, to arrive at the business model. Now we are working on that we have to concentrate now. Thank you.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Sudeep and Ravi. So can you spend a minute or two on what not to do? I think what I got out of the discussion today was what stages we should potentially engage our sales or marketing team, right? That is good that it should come at a certain stage. Initially, founders are really rolling up the sleeves and doing everything. So in the initial stages, when the money is tight, or even at a growth stage, if you try to hire a sales or a marketing team, obviously they're looking for a lot of fixed remuneration and then incentives and things like that. Are there any couple of key pointers how to sort of optimize on those aspects?
Sure, the question is very general, so it's difficult to answer at that level, but I'll pick up specific things. So having a razor sharp focus on what is the most important problem that you're solving that causes maximum pain. Razor sharp, and don't do anything else. Keep it pending, put it on your roadmap, and figure out, okay, at what stage of your roadmap, which category of customer will it make sense for? One. Second, hiring. Most important, don't hire blindly. Don't hire just because somebody's got some experience. Really work at it and deep dive with his aspirations, what drives him, what doesn't drive him, will be really aligned, because at that stage you don't have the time or the energy to watch over people's shoulders. You're looking for people who will pick up responsibility and run with it. Very critical to Because normally what we do is we hire reactively. We have a problem, we are unable to do sales, unable to follow up leads, hire a salesperson. Or what if you hire somebody who's not committed to the job, is not efficient? You've not only lost the leads, you've also lost money and time. So I would say these are two top critical things that you should really focus on. And third, please make every single rupee count.
Question is that let's say I am trying to target one particular niche. Let's say people who are. Who I go to find a problem, because unless until you do not experiment, how do you find a problem that you want to solve? That might work. So in the beginning, probably you need to try many things, and then only you see that, okay, which is gaining traction, then maybe you focus on that, or you need to start first with only one thing, then pivot. What is your suggestion?
So, in your case, I would actually, if I got you correctly, you help people move from one part of this one location to another location, and you do the vetting for that, identification and vetting for that, right? Maybe you are in the reality business, maybe you are in rental business, I don't know, or maybe you're just in moving business, whatever it is. I think the first thing really
I said no. So I'm planning to build a app for community of retired people. So again, this app can solve many problems. They need to finance for retirement. Another thing is that they want a gainful activity that they can feel, and then fitness and health. So again, there are multiple propositions for a particular segment of customer, right?
Understood. So Vinod, I'm not hearing the problem part. ये feature है, ये feature है, ये feature है. So that is for us within BYS, that's a very risky way of looking at what you're trying to do. So we would really want to go back and say, okay, how have you looked at your retired audience? What segment do they break into?
So I would say that I am in very early stage of research.
Which is the largest segment? How critical is the problem? So I would answer these questions in that research stage before I actually even think of launching an app, because unless I have very clear idea about, let's say I put boundaries around my problem. I say I'm going to look at all retired people in Bangalore. Then I'm going to say, okay, now how do I qualify this? Are these retired people living alone? Are these retired people living with their children? I would start asking questions like that and keep defining my market segments. Then I would go personally find out, 5 or 6 people who represent that market segment and talk to them. Get the first cut idea. The moment I get a sense, okay, this segment seems to be promising, then I would deep dive into that segment. I would probably create a Facebook campaign. I would see where does that audience exist? Where will I find this audience? And then I would create, small surveys which probably polls 100 people, 200 people, and tries to find out what are they really looking for? What are their critical problems? So, for example, we had worked with a startup who was trying to design a smartwatch, which would actually deliver personal health care to old people whose parents, whose children were not in India, they were abroad. See the segment definition, how sharp it is. And he ran into different challenges, but the segment definition was very, very sharp. The same startup today is working for mines and using a smartwatch for communicating with miners underground. So that you'll have to have very sharp market segment definition, and from there we can figure out how do you actually then poll and figure out. My suggestion, Vinod, is you can get onto a one-on-one conversation with us, and we can probably
just like a marketing funnel. You will sure.
Okay. Any more questions? Sudip, you want to take more feedback?
Yeah, Daniel. Monica has already written. Neeraj, Nitin, Pravina, you just joined. The workshop is almost over. Were you there with a different name? Okay. Ram, you have any takeaways you want to share? Shashi, Satyarth, Surya, Vijay. Okay, all silent. Okay, I think that's good for the day. Thank you very much, Ravi sir, and you will all get contact details as well as messages to provide your feedback over a Google link. Please do that so that it helps us serve you better. And thanks for joining on a Saturday morning. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sudeep. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ravi, sir.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.